So we'll let's start with Anne Marie, and if you all can just introduce yourself, your name, company title, pronouns, and yeah, what are you working on these days?
My name's Anne Marie, and I am the Director of Community at LifeBulb. LifeBulb is a patient accelerator. It bridges the gap between the patient and a corporation, listening to the unmet needs of the patient, which is important to me as a patient. I sort of fell into this space. It wasn't something I ever thought was going to happen. I was diagnosed with cancer 10 years ago, started blogging, worked for a startup that was cancer-centric, and just kind of evolved from there. I've been a community builder in my own real community. I have a nonprofit, so this kind of felt really natural to me. I also have 4 kids, which seems not important, but I do think there is a nurturing motherly aspect of community management, and having 4 kids, and I think that does give me a little edge there as anyone. I think it being a parent. So that's just a little blurb about me. And if I may say, what was read about Eric is 100% true. I worked with Eric on a project, and he met me at my son's national cross country meet just to see him run. And I think that is the epitome of who you are. So thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Thanks. Excited to have you. I'll drop the link to your nonprofit because it's amazing in the chat. Yeah, and yeah, Grace, if you want to share with us next.
Hey everyone, I'm Grace. My pronouns are she, her. I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area. Like Anne Marie, honestly, like I fell into community management. I went to a liberal arts college. If any of you went to one, you know they don't teach you any actual skills for the real world, so you kind of have to figure it out once you graduate. And I ended up luckily at a company that was pretty much community led, and so they really invested in the community. It was a great starting point for me to just learn what it even meant. Today I'm at Lattice, which is an HR tech company running their Slack community of HR professionals around the world. And we do performance management, goals, feedback, praise, all that good stuff. And I'm really excited for this chat today.
Excellent. And yeah, Lana, next.
I would do this in my language first, and then I'll magandang umaga, magandang hapon, magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. Salamat sa pag-imbita para dito sa ikinagagalak ko na ako'y si Lana Yelenyev, Filipina, at ako ngayon ay nakatira sa Netherlands. So I'm Lana Yelenyev, and I'm a Filipina that's now based in the Netherlands. I would say I came in community because of who I am as a Filipina. We are so much community centric as a culture, as Filipinos, and a big part of what I am unlearning is that so my transitioning from being in Asia to the Netherlands has been about 16 years now. So I see it as a reconnection to what community means in this world, which is very much different from where I grew up. And it's also a reconnection to different ways of learning what community can be, which is very much different from what I was introduced to when I was in the Philippines. So my background has been in family life and child development, and I've been involved in a lot of community-based work when I was in the Philippines and focusing mostly on education as well. And life happened in a sense of I met my partner and I decided to move here in the Netherlands. And similar to Anne-Marie's story, I got diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 37. And that's when things unfolded for me in the sense of really thinking about how am I showing up and what would I want to do and how would I live a legacy that I'm proud of. And that's how I got reconnected to my roots, reconnected to the importance of community, and also how to bring in community that is based from the Filipino psychology perspectives, which I've been sharing also for the past few years. So thank you for having me here, and thank you for the conversation as well, Eric. I know it took me a while to, juggle myself of like, oh, when was that? That was, yeah, last year when we had the conversation. So
Excellent. Well, again, thank you. And if you haven't had a chance to read the ebook yet, these three wonderful community pros have several insights and quotes and things that they share. But yeah, maybe to start, like I know you all have worked in this field for in different ways and for different amounts of times, but like what have you seen that's changed? And I bring that up because one of the things that was on my mind when I was creating this book is, I've been in the community industry for over 10 years, and I've seen a lot change, but also seen a lot of things stay the same. So one of the favorite parts to research and create for the book was I tried to find community manager job listings like back in the 90s and in the 1900s, obviously pre-internet, but like what the equivalent was. And so I think a lot has changed, but a lot of stuff has stayed the same. So curious for all of you, or and anyone that wants to jump in, what have you seen that's actually changed?
I can go first. I mean, I feel like I'm always still learning in this space because even when I first got into it, I had no idea what it was my job would entail. And I'm pretty sure my parents still think I work in IT to this day. And I think that the mystery behind community has really lifted in the last few years that I've been in the industry, like both because of ComSor and because of CMX and all these other people in the space just being more outspoken about the work that they're doing. And so companies are really seeing now that community is a good investment to make. And so they're actually putting the money into it and hiring a team versus just finding volunteers from their base of customers or their base of advocates to help them run it, which is still very important, but like you need to have a real investment. And from that too, which I found really interesting is because the title has always been community manager. I've never seen director, I've never seen chief community officer. Like when I first started, it was just community managers. And now there's way more specialized roles within the teams so that it's not a one man or one woman show like it was when I started. So I think that's a really awesome change and honestly helps take work from our hands, which is a huge bonus.
It's funny that you said that about your job description, because whenever somebody says, what do you do? And I say, I'm a community manager for a platform, they're like, what does that mean? I don't think people understand that all of these platforms that are out there, whether they be a higher end one, Facebook, Instagram, blah, 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 there's a community role there to build that engagement, to nurture that community and to grow it. I didn't know that existed. I just started telling my story. And I think, we often talk about creating a safe space for people. And the best way to create that safe space is to really share your story. And I have seen some of the best community managers out there build that platform because they are sharing their story and they become more real to the person. It's not just a bot in the background that's, messaging people. I think the other part to it that I have seen grow more, not so much change, is this is not a 9-to-5 job. This is not Monday through Friday. I am checking social media all weekend long, making sure that there's, appropriate posts, comments, and all of that good stuff. And you're right, Grace, our teams have grown a bit, but it is hard, I think, as the manager to let some of that go because you want to make sure that your community is safe. And depending upon the spaces that you work in, I've worked in anything from cancer to crisis to, healthcare. You have to make sure that your community feels safe and, respected. And that part of it, I don't think should ever change, ever. I think that is the most important part of community building.
yeah, my path to community is very much different. So I work as a consultant, and the work that I do are primarily for social organizations or nonprofits, and or small medium enterprises that are really creating their training programs or services, also within the focus on learning communities. So I've had the opportunity to go within different organizations and support them in creating or designing ways in which they can not just only engage people, but also what will be the foundational aspects on how they can create their communities. And even that, I think that's one thing that I've been noticing. The language is shifting around community management or community building. Nowadays, I'm part of a group of individuals who are creating a framework, around community weaving, uh, realizing that it's actually not building or that what we're doing, but reweaving the inherent wisdom and the practices that we've already had. And also it's community is very much inherent in all of us. And what we are experiencing now is just reconnecting and reweaving that back into professional life, to businesses, to specific brands, and how we can redesign companies as communities is something that I've been seeing as a big shift. And this is also something that I've also been very vocal about in a sense of um how might we see things differently if we look at that the business that we're creating is actually it's community, it's the framework of the community. So this is something that I've been noticing within the fields that I'm part of, and also within the organizations that I've been helping out and supporting within their community design. So language is one. And then another thing is also the practices, seeing now that we're it's not just about the likes, it's not just about the numbers, but really focusing on the depth of engagement, and also what Anne-Marie already mentioned about creating safer spaces where people will feel that they belong. So this is something that goes beyond the transactional views that we initially had around in communities, especially the likes and the getting what's this, the thumbs up. so so moving away from transaction to more transformational experiences within community.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry, Eric, I interfered. Please go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, thank you, Linda, for sharing about yourself and link in the chat, and just would encourage you all, again, it's a pretty intimate group here, so go ahead and share if you feel up to it, no worries if not. And also if you have questions for the panel as a whole, or anyone in particular, share it in the chat, or feel free to ask it aloud too, since we've got a nice group here. So yeah, if you want to go ahead.
Yep. So hi, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity and a small get together, so that the community people can interact. My name is Punya. I'm actually from India. I work as a community manager with a cybersecurity firm. I manage, member customers and partners. So basically, I deal with a lot of technical people. And as everybody said, for me, being transparent and putting out something that they can take from that safe space is very important, because these days, cyber security is very security for that matter is a vital topic, and being transparent, putting that information as transparently as possible at the right time is a key in my job. So I have actually learned that only because of the community that I'm working for, and the impact of information that has made on people. That is when I actually realized that this is my cup of tea, and this is where I have to sort of, this is where I'm happy. This is my happy place, because the impact on the business, impact on personal lives, it matters actually. So when people come and say that, thank you for being transparent, and thank you for saving our data, thank you for doing this, it actually, to understand that we create an impact through a platform. So that is really, that is something that not every job can do. And it is it's every community, it's everybody's responsibility to create that safe space. So yeah, and that is how I sort of researching more about community and learned. So I'm an alumni of community school. I've recently finished my foundation course, in community. I have only worked in platform community. So I have worked on, customer communities and partner communities. I still have not worked in communities where you guys are working in Slack, social media. I hear a lot of TikTok. I mean, I read, so there's a lot of information. So for me, it is very, very important to understand and streamline the information. Okay, there is a community healthcare. These are the platforms we can use, or what is relevant. This is okay, a tech community, this is the platform. So for me, that understanding is very important. What platform for what users, and what is the outcome of it? Based on the outcomes, we create those platforms and everything. So basically that's what I'm looking for. So thank you so much for the information that you guys have been transferring. It is really definitely helpful.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's, I mean, yeah, choosing platforms beyond just the sort of, technical and feature considerations. It's interesting to think about, yeah, where people are and how do you meet them there, and what's the best, what type of conversations do you want them to have? And I think too, one of the things that kind of got mentioned that just want to point out that I've been thinking about more just in the last few years is like, one of the reasons why working in community is so, I don't know, so potentially so powerful is because the people in the communities we work on, that's not the only community they're part of, right? They go elsewhere. They're connected to other communities, other people. The knowledge they share with each other that we hopefully help facilitate goes beyond that one circle, that one place. Measuring the impact of that is another discussion and difficult, but we know that to be true. I think a huge example of that is I learned more about the community that Grace is building and running at Lattice, and that community is people that are in HR and people that are in people ops, and they needed, especially when COVID was first kind of flaring up, they needed a place to talk with each other, to talk with their peers about, like, what are you doing? What are you seeing? How are you handling this? And they shared information, and I think it's one of the clearest examples of why having different people, different perspectives in your community is so powerful. In just a very clear-cut way, Grace shared when we talked earlier this year, that there were some people in the Lattice community that worked in research labs, meaning like they couldn't work from home. They had to work in there. And so they were having to deal with some of the just logistical things that anyone in an office has had to deal with, but they were having to deal with it earlier than other groups. So they were able to kind of share what they were seeing from the front lines. And that was happening in a multitude of ways. So I don't know, I think that's a really powerful thing about communities is that you never find one community in isolation. They're always connected. Awesome. Yeah, and again, if anyone in the audience has a question, ask it in the chat or just speak up and we'll work you in. But a question for the panel, like, what do you wish more people understood about the nature of the work, whether that's coworkers, teammates, customers, family members, friends? Like, what is it that, even though this has been happening for a while, it's still new, and people don't realize or don't really grasp?
I can kick this off as kind of going with what I was thinking about a minute ago, is the mental health aspect of it. Eric, you know that I am strong. I also work for NAMI of New York City. I'm a crisis trained everything. And the aspect of how this mentally drains you is never really talked about. There's been multiple research done about community managers and the mental health toll that it takes. And I worked for a company where it was really important to me to have my moderators have somebody, not just in HR, but a resource, a crisis manager that they could talk to, because you do deal with people who may be disgruntled or upset or in crisis. And how do you manage that and just, stop the conversation or, not think about that person anymore? It's difficult. And I think that is a really big part of it that does not get talked about enough. And I think it's something that needs to come into the light much more, especially platforms like TikTok that, is based on algorithms, and Facebook, based on their slight moderation, all of that stuff. And that's where the youth is hanging out. Not to regress, but we give these kids this device and tell them to use it, and then rely on community managers like us to help them gauge it. And that's just not how it works. It just isn't. And there's a lot of caveats to all those platforms that, adults don't even understand. So how can they understand the role of the community manager?
I would chime in on what you've just shared, Anne Marie. I'm actually hosting learning sessions on how we can design healing centered spaces. Because for me, that is a big part of what we definitely need right now in society, wherein we can really look at communities as spaces of refuge. This idea that, that if we are to really move as a community, then healing needs to be at the core of our practices. And I know some people flinch at the thought of healing, but like what Anne Marie said, now we have quite a lot of burnouts, depression, a high rate of people getting out of the community field, mainly because the role is demanding. And if there's not much support on that, then this is just going to be perpetuating this hustle culture that is very much often seen within different organizations or different companies. So for me, healing is definitely one area that needs to be talked about. And also one point that I often also share is, instead of starting with why, let's start with who, because at the heart of community are the people. And if we are to provide services, training programs, or learning cohorts, we need to really know who are these people that we're serving, and in not just what are their needs, but also more so what are their strengths. Because for me, this is also something that is very pervasive in the community scene. Is we look at it from a very pathogenic perspective of people lack something, they need something, they have deficits. So shifting from a pathogenic to more salutogenic way of looking at communities, what are their strengths, what are their assets, what's the inherent wisdom that's already there. How can we create solutions based from what people are already doing or what people already know? And if we start with who, we can cultivate all the answers because the wisdom is already within communities. So for me, I see it as this framing of starting with who allows us to really dive deep into how can we best serve communities and how can we best engage people within the community.
I don't know how I'm supposed to follow up to that. I feel like that was just such a good answer. Like, what am I supposed to do? But honestly, +1 to everything that Anne Marie and Lana are saying, like, especially because of the pandemic, mental health and burnout has really surfaced to the top of the conversation for everyone, because I think we didn't realize how high performing we all were. And then once you had to add on caregiving, a global pandemic, now you got monkeypox, like all these other things added on, it's impossible to do our jobs and support other people when we're struggling to support ourselves. And Eric mentioned this, but I manage a community of HR professionals, and they're sort of like, managing their internal communities and supporting the people at their companies. And something that my community members say all the time that really resonated with me was, you can't pour from an empty cup. So setting boundaries for yourself and really honoring your time and your mental health is so important for you to be able to help other people. And when I think about it from a performance aspect, because I am in marketing, a lot of what we talk about is results. Are we hitting our goals? Like, are we delivering? And so it's really easy to get caught up in that and feel like you're not performing at the level that other people are, because you're not delivering something physical that you can prove to people the ROI of your community. But the ROI of your community is different based on what your community is and what your goals are, right? So you're building relationships and you are connecting people and you are increasing loyalty and all of those things that are having a positive impact on your business, but most importantly, keeping your members happy so that they want to stick around. And that is the most important thing that you could be doing. And we talk about this a lot in marketing, but the dark funnel, like the work that you're putting into your community is having a long-lasting impact. And so you're creating loyalty, you're creating brand loyalty, and you're creating this community that's going to stick together and really speak up for you when the time comes. And speaking up in spaces that you're not able to track, because we can't track when people are talking face to face, and we can't track when someone's sharing something on Slack. But the efforts you're putting in as a community manager, you know it, your community members know it, and it's okay if your family, your teammates don't necessarily know it, because the people you're serving understand the work that you're doing and appreciate it. And sometimes that's the thing that we need to keep us going.
Grace, I'm so happy you said that, because I always say that community management is very hard to track progress. Yes, you could say I've had X amount of likes, we have 27 more no followers this week, but that's not what it's about. It really is not. And it is taking the brand of the company you work for, their mission statement, and intertwining it with other people. And those have to be aligned. And sometimes they're not. There's overlap, and then there's controversy. And sometimes you want that person to come in and, like, you know, start it up a little bit so that it can flow, but then you got to watch it. It's a very, very messy situation. But I always say, you know, maybe we didn't raise any followers this week. Maybe we didn't gain any new people, but there were 4 people that messaged us that said, thank you for sharing so-and-so's story. It resonated with me. I finally found someone that I connected with. That to me is so much bigger than, you know, my SEO traction. It really is. And maybe that's why I'm more of a community manager than a marketing manager, but it's just how I feel about it. And I feel very strongly about that.
Yeah, and something just like on the delivery aspect, because I can't say, you know, I had a $20,000 deal this month, so like, yay me. But there are those nice things that community members say that they really appreciate that we do. So I started this page in our Notion database at work that is just called like Good Vibes. And so we just put screenshots of all the nice things that community members say to us, or that other people in the company have said to us, recognizing the work that we're doing, no matter how small it is. And there are days, you know, where we're feeling down about our work. We didn't complete everything we wanted to that week. And so it's really nice to go back to that wall and just remind ourselves that the work we're doing is important to people, and that there are things that we're doing that are making the community better. And that's what's important in the long run.
Yeah, I think that it's so underrated. The effect of really being in community. Because for me, I have this perspective of one person that's changed because of having felt real belonging and having felt real, this feeling of being really seen as an individual. That one person is actually generations that will be impacted. And if we really think deeply, we're creating shifts not just within this generation, but the generations forward. And this is the most important part as to why, it goes beyond the numbers. It goes beyond metrics. The most important thing, for me, that we need to be measuring is really what's the heart that the community provides for people. You know, how do they feel connected? How do they feel that they belong? Is there reciprocity within the community? Do people feel that they are seen, that they are acknowledged, that they are heard? These are all things that oftentimes we would say, oh, these are the soft skills in management, in professional life, but these are the most important skills that people go back to as to why they're part of communities. And if we strip them, you know, if we strip out those essential elements from communities, it would just really be more like a forum, or, you know, a place where just people go there for transactions. And then that's not what a community's heartbeat is about. So I think for me, it's that, you know, like really tuning in is what is the core of the community.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, executives and marketing people or the other stakeholders you're having to interact with that may not really understand community, or even some that do, like always talk about metrics and numbers, and there's value in at least attempting to measure what you can. But I often find too that they get that they're just as human and irrational, so to speak, as all of us, and they actually get their minds, their frames of reference get changed from seeing those individual level reactions, just like all of us do. So yes, they may say, oh well, oh, it's impressive that you have a 20% increase in XYZ, but really what's going to change their minds about investing in community and about it is experiencing it firsthand. They may not say that, they may not think that, but they are impacted by those stories, just like all of us are. So I definitely think the more you can bring people in and let them see those things for themselves, there's no substitute for that. So I always try to do whatever I can to get teammates and stakeholders inside the community, even if they're just observing. Awesome. Let's see. And again, if anyone has any questions or things the panel can help with. But I would say, yeah, what advice do you all have of someone who wants to get into community management as a profession? Maybe they've done plenty of it, in their side projects and personal life, but as a profession, as a career, as something you're going to do for a while, what advice would you have, knowing what you know now?
I always hate being the first one to go, but I'm just don't even care anymore. My biggest thing that I tell people is connect with your tech people, connect with them and have them understand what you are doing, what the community needs, because a very wise techie once said to me, you can have a great platform, it can have all the bells and whistles on it, but if your community is suffering, it's not going to work. And if you have this beautiful, vibrant community and your platform stinks, still not going to work. They need to be integrated. They need to really work well together. You as a community manager need to understand the tech side of it. Why can't I do X, Y, and Z? Why is this part of my, a glitch on the site or whatever it is, that you need to understand why that can't happen or why it does happen. And they need to understand what you're trying to do, because without that, you will not be able to build your community the way that it should grow. If you have that understanding, it can really help. I mean, I worked with a techie who did not get the community aspect at all. He really focused on the platform and the community died. It really did. And I also think that you need to know that depending upon your platform, your community manager is like, I mean, I was been known as Mama Bear on so many communities, because they are the mama, the daddy, the papa, the uncle, I don't care what you want to call it, on that site. And that community manager leaves, it 100% changes that platform. I could list multiple places where this has happened. So know that your role is bigger than just growing this community, that people are really looking to you to protect them.
Yeah, it goes with what I was about to say about being a community manager is really about service. So if this is, if this is a path that you're interested in, also check in with yourself, like what Grace already said, that, knowing your boundaries, understanding, if you're coming in from a full cup, just really having an awareness of yourself in terms of, in what ways can I be of service to this community, and in what ways can this community also nourish me, because it needs to, again, that reciprocity is very important. So what Grace was saying about setting boundaries is very crucial. So as a budding community manager or someone who's exploring it, also explore, what is it about community work that resonates with you? What are you nourished by it, and how can you see that more in the work that you would want to do?
Yeah, plus one to what Anne Marie and Lana were saying. I think for me, the most important thing for someone wanting to get into community management, and this is something that excites me, I don't know about everyone else, but it's the fact that really every day is kind of different. You have different people you're talking to and different problems you're trying to solve. Like, yes, we have our overall strategy, we have the vision of the community and the things that we're trying to work towards, but we're literally working with like hundreds, thousands of humans that have lives, have personalities, are not going to want to do everything that we want them to do, and are going to have opinions when we ask them to do something. So really being able to adapt to situations and roll with the punches, and like I don't know what the saying is, but like letting things roll off your back and not taking personal offense to stuff is so important, because you are going to have to just work around so many different things as a community manager. So I think that adaptability and being proactive versus reactive is a huge trait that community managers, like a muscle that community managers really need to build.
If I can add one more thing, it is be prepared for the worst. Like, I am constantly thinking worst case scenario. Like, okay, this is great, but what if this happens? And it does help prepare you for things that come up. And reach out to your people that are like us, like-minded people. I actually had a stalker once, and it was not good. And the first thing I did was messaged a really good friend who was, a good community manager, and asked for her advice. How do I handle this? Because your CEO, your CFO is not going to know how to handle it, because it could be brand new to the situation. Reach out, ask for help 100%, and prepare for the worst, because you just don't know.
I don't know. I mean, if this is an advice to a particular person who's joining as a community manager, this is from experience I'm telling. So usually when companies hire, it's still a buzzword. People are still, finding more about community, especially the management I'm talking about. So, I mean, community managers and the people who have worked know what is a community, but people who are hiring you for a community position might not know what is a community. So they expect you to actually do everything together. I mean, they expect you to actually do a one-man's, they think it is a one-man show. So one thing that I have been facing is that, so my advice or probably the questions, to ask to the top management would be, I mean, eventually, are you going to hire more people? Because it's to make them understand, it's very crucial, because it's not a one man's business. You need moderators, you need people who can manage the community, you need a lot of support system to run the community. It's not just sitting and answering discussions. There is a person who needs to design the strategy. We have to have plans. So we can't run a community with one person. So it is extremely crucial to understand the role, to have that healthy discussion with the management, so that your timelines and the management's plan for the particular role. Yep.
Awesome. So yeah, I want just about 10 minutes left here, but wanted to get to a question in the chat. So Erica asked, what's been the most impactful business decision you've made as a community leader? most impact personally, like hiring help, most impact on the community. And yeah, I'll say real quick, and it was actually related to the conversation around metrics. The thing that's been most impactful for me is like having the, I don't know, the confidence and also the, it's only possible when you have the sort of space and trust from the rest of the team, but deciding what I think those metrics should be, even if they're not the traditional metrics, right? Like, I think measuring things, even imperfectly, is important, not just for sort of the things the rest of the business wants to know, but for helping you figure out what to prioritize. Because when you get to a certain size, like, you're going to have to prioritize, and that gets hard. Even, you can't do it 24/7, so you have to prioritize. And so figuring out what do you want those metrics to be, and those metrics could be, number of people who write in and say thanks for helping today. Like, they can be whatever you think they should be, and I think that's something that we are, I know myself too often thought, oh, well, these platforms and these tools, what they decided the most important metric should be, they probably know something I don't, but that's not the case. So really think about what you want to measure, even if it's hard, even if it's it's going to be a small number. But yeah, what about the rest of the panel? What's been the most impactful business decision you've made?
I think maybe not from a business standpoint, honestly, but from a community standpoint here at Lattice, the most impactful has been when I created our ambassadors program, because we always want community to be involved in the decisions that we make. And honestly, I'm not an expert in HR. I don't know anything about benefits, and I absolutely could not help someone on the legal stuff. So having those voices in the community that can do that for us has been incredibly helpful. But at the same time, they are a voice for the community to us to give the feedback that maybe we're not seeing because we have other things that we're doing and we're not in the community 100% of the time. And so having those ambassadors in there, I think, have been super impactful in that they help guide us when we're looking at our calendar for each quarter or even the year. They help us with moderating our community, and they help give us advice when we are trying to figure out what exactly it is, organization-wise or content-wise, that our community members need. And so I think from an impact standpoint, that probably has been the most important for us. But yeah, on the business side, I mean, honestly, having ambassadors on the business side is also great because they are advocates for our business and for our brand. And the people that we've recruited truly love Lattice and our Resources for Humans community and have referred many folks to join our community. So I think that creates a business impact as well, actually.
Yeah, and just want to point out real quick, I absolutely love the way Grace has set up their ambassador landing page and the whole program. Check it out, learn from it. I have, like, the thing I love that they do that I haven't seen before is that they say, like, here's what's required if you want to be an ambassador at a minimum. Here's what we expect, but here's how you can go above that if you want. And I think it's really smart, but it's also like recognizing that, yeah, some of these ambassadors are super busy. They may not be able to, go above and beyond, but if they want to, this is sort of what that would look like. And some people, maybe they, maybe they have the capacity for whatever reason to do a little more. And here's what that looks like. So absolutely love the way they framed it. A great example. Cool. Yeah, Lana, please.
From my work, mainly because I work with founders and their teams. So one of the things that I've seen that was detrimental also in terms of community management is having founders, because they're the source of the community, or at least the idea around the community. So those founders, they need their vision and their their intentions as to why a community is important very visible within any design, any program that will be implemented for the community. So for me, I like working with Source, which is the work of Peter Koenig and also Tom Nixon, and the idea that this source energy is very important when you're bringing in people that would be helping you in managing the community. So even before hiring community managers, people who have really felt that need to say, okay, we need to have community as part of our brand, our organization, our company. They need to have their voices in as well. And oftentimes what I've seen is because when there's a community manager, and if that source energy is not transferred, you just change community managers, and then the focus will be different. So there needs to be an alignment, and I've seen how that alignment has greatly helped the community. And then another part of it is also like what Grace has already mentioned, finding people, not just ambassadors. I liken this to fire, the tending of the fire. So you need to have fire keepers in your community. As these are the people who can tend the fire with you. So you're not just the only one always, making sure that there's fire burning. But there's also other people who can, bring in the wood, bring in the drinks, bring in the company, bring in the jokes. So there's different roles that are possible, and inviting people that are within the community already, of allowing them to step up with their strengths, with their gifts, is also something that shifts a lot of things internally. Again, for me, I love this idea of, if we are to work more from a strengths-based perspective, people who can contribute to the community are already there. So it's just a matter of how can we invite them in. And I've seen in the organizations that I've supported, I've seen how that has shifted the way that they've been managing the community.
I agree with both of you. So I'm going to turn it a little differently. In the words of Ice Cube, check yourself before you wreck yourself. You don't realize how much time you really spend on your phone, on your computer. You really do not. There was a point in, a launch of a website that I worked for, that I looked at my kids were all talking about how many hours they spent on their phone, and they were bragging because they had less. And I looked at my phone, and I'm not joking, I screenshot it. 17 hours in one day I was on my phone, checking in on the app, checking in on the other social media platforms. And I stared at it and I was like, what am I doing? It was not good for my mental being. And as much as you want to stay with a company because it's easy, because you're already there, you know how it works and everything, if it is wrecking you, you need to make a career change, because that is not healthy for you, and you're not doing your community any service. And the last thing I want to say to it is, if a community that you're working with, changes, which everything happens with community and with business, and it's not fitting your mission anymore, you can leave. There's other opportunities out there. I know it's scary, but you can do that. And that was a really hard change for me, but I knew it was good for my mental being. And that to me is so important, because like you said, I think it was Grace, you can't pour from an empty cup. I can't check in with my community if I'm not checking in with myself. So.
Great. We are out of time. So just want to again thank our three amazing panelists. Check out, download the book to see some of their incredible insights. I'll put the link again in the chat. And yeah, let us know what you think of the book. We, nothing's certain, but we might do this again next year. So I'd be curious to think what we should change, update, do more of, include. Yeah, it's been really fun putting this together. And I don't know, I love working in community. I love learning about different types of community. And to Anne-Marie's point, there are a wider variety of communities and a wider variety of jobs that touch community and can impact community than there used to be. And I think that'll continue to be the case. It'll continue growing. So, you heard here from people working in three different types of communities and different ways that the business is doing that. So, and in the book, there's a lot more. So it's a growing field, but it's very fragmented. So try to look for the different pockets, just professionally and personally as well. But thank you all for joining us. Thanks for sharing your time and insights, panelists, and thanks for contributing to the book too. Thanks for answering my random email like 6 months ago when I asked you some questions. I really appreciate it, and hope everyone has a great rest of your day.